It's a very tough fight in City Hall. It really is. These guys absolutely have the upper hand. You know, fighting a government group with unlimited source of funds is an extremely difficult proposition. I can't tell you how absolutely joyous I am at the response that we got out of the residents of Geist. And I tell you, the group that's on the GUO board, you know, even though I've had a lot of arguments with a bunch of them during that time, which you really can avoid, great folks. I mean, to come together as a completely, you know, ad hoc group that just kind of put themselves and formed themselves to fight on behalf of the Geist residents, monumental. I mean, honestly, it was. I mean, the stuff which we had done, you know, to try to get the law changed, and we almost did. We came very close to getting the law changed. The town of Fisher spent over $300,000 fighting us, and I think I just spent some time going down to the State House. You know, think about that, and we almost got that law through. Again, I met an awful lot of people. That was tremendous. You know, and being around and being associated with the Geist residents and understanding their passion for what they have was huge for me. It really was. My personal side for getting into it was that we were not going to receive any new services for any extra money we were going to be paying. And you know, I'm one of those people who just don't like, I don't believe the government spends the money I give them now the way I want them to spend money, so why do I want to give them more? That was my personal belief on why to get in there. The governor's plan changed the game. You know, Luke Kinley and the governor and the Republican platform to put the property tax, you know, at a cap of 1%. You know, once you did that, and it was obviously, we saw it at the GUO, you know, if you're going to try to go make an argument in court now when that property tax cap was going to be layered over, which really means a net there is no effect on taxes. Now, on an individual basis, from what we've been able to determine, some people may pay a little bit moderately more, some may pay moderately less, but I mean, on an overall standard, you're almost right where you're at today, okay, tax-wise. And what's going on. So, you know, how do you fight that fight again when now the money is not going to change? Now, the other side of that is that we won't receive the property tax benefit that maybe some of the other people in the state will, okay, because you're not going to get that reduction as you were already in a municipality, but, you know, so be it. We're not paying any more. And I think that's a big thing for the residents. Certainly it was a big deal for me. Well, you have to remember the way the law worked, you know, once they passed that third reading of the ordinance, we had 90 days to go collect signatures. At that point, it was still very much, I think they just passed the law when we were heading out to go get it. I think the first mailing had already been done, honestly, before that had ever been filed. The other side of it was, I mean, it's a 900-page law. No one really knew what the law was going to do or not going to do until we actually had some guys who were, you know, had their hands on it from the get-go, could tell us, well, this is the effect for it. And that was a problem. The other side of that was we felt, as a GUO, we had a mandate to take that thing to court. Yeah, that's what the people in Geist wanted, and you know, and maybe we saw the argument was waning with the 1% cap, but we felt that the Geist residents deserved their day in court. We pressed forward and we got there. So I think we certainly fulfilled that mission for the Geist residents. There was some hurt feelings there, and you know, certainly there was some name calling on both sides, and the council really didn't help themselves out trying to ingratiate themselves to the Geist residents, and there was a number of comments made that were unfortunate, and I think there's going to have to be some major fence mending between the two, and quite frankly, there may not be able to be a fence mending with some of the council members, and you know, it may cost them their jobs in county government, or excuse me, in town government. You know, I think there's probably some motivated folks to go after in the next election and try to replace those guys. I mean, there's already that movement afoot to make it a city. That will change dramatically how people get elected in the town of Fishers. And I think, you know, very much like the Westfield folks did when that whole piece got forcibly annexed, they basically replaced the entire council. And that could very well happen with those folks. They looked a little too far out, and I don't think they really looked at the political muster that could be had over at Geist as to what could happen long term. So I think there's some things they certainly could do out there. Again, I think giving Geist the identity that it wants really doesn't cost the Fishers taxpayers, now which we're going to be part of, any money. I mean, you know, you could label it up just like they label Castleton, just like they label Broad Ripple and Crow's Nest and all the rest of the areas around town. I mean, there's a unique identity that Geist has. It's not the same as Fishers. Fishers, in my mind, back when I was at college, when I was coming through here, was the train station. It's a blip that I used to drive through on my way to Carmel. Geist was always out there. I remember going out to Geist. That's what people talked about. They still talk about it in the newspaper. Your publication's still called at Geist. I mean, Geist has a unique identity. And I think to recognize that is not really a separation thing. It is what it is. I mean, Geist is always going to be Geist. So why not have that? I don't know if you can really declare a winner, but I certainly think we got more out of it than Fishers did. I think Fishers probably got a little bit more bad press than certainly the Geist residents did. And for a $150,000 bill, which is the bill that we basically incurred through this time to save millions of dollars in property tax just by fighting this. And again, I'll give some kudos to the governor who helped us out there. I think we were probably better winners than they were, but I don't really think anybody really won there. I think there's some bad blood, and I wish that weren't there, but I think that's going to kind of stay around for a little bit. Well, I don't know if the GUO will survive as the GUO. I think certainly the Geist residents will probably reform and probably create, maybe a pact or certainly like a Friends of Geist. But the GUO was specifically formed to fight annexation, and that was the mission of it. That was the overall group, and I think that the legal classification of it, we can't really stay formed for much longer because that's basically a moot point. But I believe there's going to be some residents that get together that politically want to stay active, and now that we're going to give them all this money, okay, through taxation, that we're certainly going to be vocal about how they spend it.
And so any people in particular you want to give a shout out to as far as just job well done?
Yeah, Tom, you've been tremendous with us from the very get-go, and I certainly appreciate that. The folks on the board, I mean, Mike Fisher, who was basically our scribe and really did almost all those press releases for the most part with some help from certainly Rachel Quaid. Rachel is as passionate as they come, and while certainly Rachel and I always don't agree, I can always tell you her heart's in the right place. Ken Stank, our vice president, Joe Weingarten, again, another person very passionate about what he does. Jay Hacker, kind of the silent person sitting in the back running the treasury. Ann Vaughn was instrumental. I know I'm forgetting folks, but Kelly Schonborn. Kelly really, was a very big-time voice of reason as an attorney and the secretary of the group. I really couldn't have done much without her because she was a great sounding board to kind of keep us out of trouble a lot, and that was very important for us to do. And certainly if I've forgotten any,
Bidwell.
Yeah, Kirk Bidwell did all of our IT and stuff like that. Yeah, Kirk was one of those other guys who was, not maybe the vocal majority of the group who was out front all the time, but, couldn't have got things done without him. And then, of course, Ron Crothers in the Indianapolis Yacht Club. I mean, Ron signed up to have us, meet upstairs, every week or every other week, and I think he thought it was going to be for a year, but boy, he didn't flinch at all. I mean, we were there at the yacht club, and he and the group provided us beverages and some light snacks for that entire time, so we can meet and continue to try to work forward for the Geist residents. So a huge shout out for Ron and Indianapolis Yacht Club. Our block captains and our neighborhood coordinators, again, some tremendous folks out there, and then everybody who donated money. I think really to the cause allowed us to continue, because without the support of the Geist residents, we would never have gotten as far as we did. We would have lost this battle 3 years ago and been paying taxes for the last couple of years. This thing would have been done. Now you look at it, we're not going to start paying taxes to Fishers until 2011, the way property tax law and annexation law works. I mean, that's a big deal.
Okay, is it tough fighting City Hall?
Yeah.